Now, South African farm workers are in high demand in the United States. American farmers want them to be exempt from the country's travel ban ahead of the growing season. It's been less than a month now since the last ban, which was imposed back in January and then was lifted. It was scrapped because of American farmers who protested against it. So let's unpack this with AgriSA Executive Director Christo van Der Rheede. Thank you for your time, Christo, and good morning to you. Happy holiday to you as well. But I mean, before we get into, obviously the protest coming from the United States agricultural sector, let's talk about the demand of SA farm workers in the US. How much of a demand is there?
I believe that the United States usually require approximately 500,000 workers per annum. That amounts to 500,000 workers. Most of those workers come from Mexico and from various other parts of South America. And then for the last couple of years, there was a growing demand for South African agricultural workers. That came as quite a surprise to us because we thought that the American farmers would rather prefer the Mexican workers. You have the same scenario in Europe. Europe also requires approximately 500,000 farm workers, and most of those farm workers come from northern African states or Turkey or other parts of Eastern Europe. So this is a worldwide phenomenon because of the seasonal nature of agriculture. It's very difficult, to appoint a person on a full-time basis if almost a huge part of the year is non-productive months, so to speak. We have this similar situation in South Africa as well. But that demand is growing, and I think it's for higher skilled workers from South Africa.
Right. Is that what makes this particular protest from the United States quite significant, Christo? Because it's not the first time we're hearing the United States calling for, an exemption of South African farmers when it comes to travel ban. We're seeing this protest once again, this request, so to speak, to have them being exempt from this travel ban.
You see, the challenge is that if you bring foreign workers into the country, those workers obviously are prepared in many instances to work for a lower wage. And that renders the wage demands of your American workers obsolete. And I think that to a large extent angers them because at the same time, whilst there's huge unemployment, and yes, to a large extent, not such huge unemployment in the United States, but in particular in South Africa. So obviously our people will start looking for work in other countries. But it becomes a dilemma for your American worker if those jobs are taken over by people who are prepared to work for a lower wage.
Yeah. Would this then be a challenge for the American, farm owners or even the agricultural sector that side, should the United States not exempt the South African farm workers from the travel ban, or do they have other alternatives?
I think for the American farmer and all farmers all over the world, have one purpose in mind, and that's to run a profitable business. So if your labor cost becomes too high and your input cost becomes too high, then you barely break even. Then you run the risk of losing your business because it's no longer profitable. So everyone is trying to reduce labor costs. So a farmer has two options. A farmer can employ workers that have with a lower salary in mind per month or per hour, low wage per hour rate, or the farmer has the other option of mechanization. And that's the other sad part, that's all the challenge that face many workers. So, but in many sectors in agriculture, it's not possible to mechanize fully because you cannot employ a machine to pick apples, for example, or pick oranges. So for the American farmers, it will become a challenge. And I think they will just have to find a way of dealing with the genuine concerns of the American workers, but also, on the other hand, the reality that they need workers now to harvest the produce.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to us about this issue, Christo. That's the time I had with you this morning, and thank you for your time. AgriSA Executive Director, Christo van Der Rheede.